So hello friends, Rebecca Walton here from Rubber Stamp Tapestry. Are you ready to make some St. Patrick's Day cards? I have 3 cards for you today. We will be using our new set, Luck of the Irish. It has 3 mini peg stamps in it, and you can do some incredible things with those 3 stamps. One of the cards we will be making is a stencil card. We'll be creating our own stencil and stamping the inside of it. We will be taking a heart die, stamping it, and making our own clover. And we will be making a card that's a little bit more fancy. We're going to be heat embossing a border card. I hope you'll stay tuned and join me. Grab your supplies. Let's get started. For this card, we're going to be cutting several pieces of paper the same dimensions. You will need to create an A2 size card base with white cardstock that will give you a 5.5 by 4.25 inch card. You need to cut a piece of green cardstock to that same dimension, a piece of white cardstock to that same dimension, and a piece of computer paper to that same dimension. We're going to create a stencil for our card, and we want to be able to place this on here, do our stencil, and then we will trim it 1/4 inch. And then you will need a piece of white cardstock for scrap just to do this little sentiment. You'll need a piece of ribbon. And in this card, I use Memento inks. We're actually going to use VersaFine Clair inks in Green Oasis, Verdant, and Shady Lane. They will give a much brighter green, but if you like this muted color, you're welcome to use Memento. And I use for this card Pistachio, Pear Tart, New Sprout, and Bamboo Leaves. So you can choose by the end which one you like best. So the first thing we're going to do to get it out of the way is to adhere our green cardstock to our card base. Then we'll set it aside and move on to the next step. So we have that done. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to grab my white cardstock and the stencil that I made. So with this, I cut the copy paper the same size as the card, 5.5 by 4.25. Centered the die so that I have a little bit of space at the top and bottom. I mean, it's a very large die anyway, so I don't have a lot of room to work with. This happens to be almost a 4.5 inch die by about 4 inches. Cut that out, and then we will stencil away. I'm going to use some blue tape to hold this in place. So I'm just going to choose a stamp and a color, go with that, and we can always go back and switch up the stamp with the color. And I'm going to go with my lightest color first. We're just going to stamp all over. You want to make sure that you get around the stencil part, the edge. That will really define your heart. This is just a much brighter ink than the Memento. I think it looks really great. It is a beautiful day here in North Carolina. We have chickens crowing in the back, tree frogs croaking, birds chirping, daffodils blooming. It is crazy. Last Friday it was snowing, so it's been a mix of emotions. The climate is very mixed up right now. It's just refreshing to see the sun shining and just makes you think spring is right around the corner. Okay, now I'm going to switch up my inks and my stamps. Just kind of go back and fill in the spots that I think need it. Using this Dollar Tree makeup brush, I'm going to take the lighter green and we're just going to fill in as best we can in these white areas. This will define our heart. You could do this with a pencil as well and have more control over where the color goes. Now we want to trim this down 1/8 inch off of all sides. So we'll now attach this to our card base. Just making sure that it opens in the correct position and centering it so that we have a 1/4 inch border of green around the entire card. We will glue this down. Now on a scrap of paper, we will stamp our sentiment, Happy St. Patrick's Day. And I do apologize on this. This is created with Lawn Fawn's Happy Everything collection, but I have lost the Happy stamp. So I just had to fill it in with something that I had. So it's not a true set. So we're going to stamp this right in the center, and then we're going to trim it. This is going to go across our card like this. Let me get our original here. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that out, and then we will place it and place our ribbon. Don't forget to subscribe, and be sure to click the bell. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this to the back, and then we'll trim it down. So get it pretty centered so that we have ribbon to work with on either end. Okay, I'm going to glue that down and we'll trim the ribbon. So I've got that glued down, and now it's just a matter of trimming the ribbon. I'm going to go right next to the end of this cardstock. And that's the finished card. Very easy, vibrant. Here's the other one. So you can see the difference. So if you're looking for more of a muted color, go with the Memento. And if you want bright, go with the VersaFine Clair. And you could also just take the blending brush around the edge and give this a more white appearance in the background if you like. So you'll notice that this card is much larger. This is an A7 size card with a card base that is 5 1/8 inches wide by 7 inches tall. You can make this by taking an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, folding it in half, and then just trimming it to the dimensions that you need. And your paper trimmer may have those dimensions laid out for you so that you don't have to fold first. I'm not sure if that's the way that I did it. I rarely make this size card, but I had only the smallest heart die that I had that was reasonable was this, and so to be able to do this card, I needed to expand the card base. If you have a smaller die that would do an A2 size card, you could do that as well. The green base is 4 7/8 inches wide by 6 3/4 inches tall. And then each one of our heart dies is around 2 3/4 inches wide by 2.5 inches tall. In this particular card, I use Memento ink just like I did before, but we are going to substitute when we make this card with the VersaFine Clair inks in the same colors that we used in the previous card. So we're going to start out by stamping our dies. So just like before, I picked a stamp and an ink and do all of them in that, and then move on to the next stamp and ink. 3 stamps, 3 inks. And I'm rotating the stamp as best I can each time I make an impression. So with this stamp, I'm just filling in the white space. And you can go back with whatever color that you like and fill in if you feel like that you want that. So now I have the die cuts stamped. I'm going to place them on my card. If you'll grab your card base, I'll show you with this one. So with this, I allowed my petals or my leaflets to go toward the outside edge of the white cardstock. So you can use this sort of as a reference. What I did was flip these over and then adjusted them the way that I wanted, and then we're going to put a piece of tape on that, flip it over, remove the tape, and glue it down, and I'll show you how I did that. So I have my clover leaf the way that I like it. I'm noticing that it's not going over, it hardly even goes over much of the green cardstock, and it definitely doesn't go into the white. So I know that it's going to fit on my card. I'm just going to take a piece of tape, flip this over. Now if I left it like this, you would be able to see the tape through it, so I don't want to do that. I just want to rotate it until it fits where I like it. And it's fine if it goes over the green as long as it doesn't overlap the white, because we want it to fit in the envelope. So since our green is not glued down, I'm just going to take care to try to keep it in place. So basically what I'm going to do is glue the out underneath here, get this down first on all of these, and then we're going to peel up the corners of this and remove the tape. So I've gently lifted the corners, the ends of these hearts, and I'm removing the tape. So our leaflets are glued down. Now I'm going to glue the green cardstock to the white card base. So we're going to apply our sentiment, and I'm going to do it in a light colored ink. So it's very light. Let that dry, and I'm going to trace it with a gel pen. I think actually before I trace, I'm going to go ahead and draw the stem for the clover, and then we'll color that in later. You could heat emboss this with white embossing powder if you liked, if you didn't have a gel pen, or if you like that look better. And that is our large A7 size St. Patrick's Day card. Here's the other in the softer colors. For our last card, we're going to make a simple border card and heat emboss. So for this, you will need an A2 size card base, 5.5 by 4 1/4, and I chose cream color paper, and then another sheet of paper at 5 1/4 by 4 inches that we will do our stamping on, and some embossing powder and double-sided tape. We're going to start by masking off the center of the card where the sentiment will be stamped. So, how many of you celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Let me know in the comments below. So like before, grab an ink, grab a stamp, 1 ink per stamp, and just stamp a border across. So I'm rotating the leaf stems toward the center of the border, and I'm using the Stamp Right placement line, which shows me the end of the stem. These VersaFine Clair inks are so vibrant. I think they're just perfect for these green colors. They seem to give a truer, more natural green color than the Memento inks. We want to make sure that we really get a good stamping across the edge of the tape. Otherwise, the border will not be very defined. So now I'm just going to fill in where I see fit. So I'm going to use the ink that is on the tape to rub it slightly along the edge to really define the border. I want to gently remove this. Now using 1/8 inch double-sided tear tape, we are going to line the border that we just made. Okay, so now that we have our border and it has dried, and these inks do take a little longer to dry, we want to cover the card in anti-static powder, which mine is just cornstarch in an old sock. I'm going to ink up my stamp with Versamark ink. And I'm going to try to get it in the center. I'm going to actually peel this up first, trim this tape, and then I'll remove it. And my sentiment is crooked, it looks like. That is what is nice about being able to stick my head over it. I don't want to stick my head in front of the camera, but it does make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing when I'm able to do that. I'm going to use silver embossing powder. Just thought that would look nice against the green. I'm going to go this way with it. I'm going to flip it over and go the other way. Now we're going to heat emboss. I'm going to heat up my heat tool and melt this embossing powder. That is so lovely. I love this technique. You can take, it is so simple to do. Any stamps work for this border. You take a simple card and just really perk it up. So now it's just a matter of adhering this to our base. So here is the finished card. And here's the card that we started out with. You can see the difference in ink color. Absolutely gorgeous. I hope you enjoyed making these cards with me. I look forward to next time we will do another great set. Have a wonderful day.